Hey guys! Tonight we are peeling back the romantic, marble white veneer of ancient Greece to feel what it was really like to live there. Imagine waking up not to a gentle alarm, but to the stifling heat of a stone room already turning into an oven, with a goat staring at you from the corner of your shared family space. We're going to walk through a day so demanding, so devoid of modern comforts, that it makes our toughest days look like a spa retreat. Frankly, you probably won't survive this, but it's a fascinating place to visit from the safety of your bed. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I love reading where you all are tuning in from, so please drop your city and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you're aware of isn't a sound or a sight, but a feeling. It's the heat. It's a physical presence in the air, thick and already clinging to your skin like a damp wool blanket, even though the sun has only just begun to bleed a weak, gray light through the single, unglazed window slit high in the wall. There is no glass. Glass is a ridiculous luxury, something for a pharaoh's tomb, not for your simple dwelling. This opening is just a hole, a suggestion of the outside world that does little to ventilate and everything to remind you that another brutal, sun-drenched day is beginning. You're lying on a straw-stuffed pallet on the floor. The floor itself is packed earth, cool in some deep, ancient way, but that coolness is already in retreat, fighting a losing battle against the encroaching day. The fabric of your tunic, the simple garment you sleep in, is coarse and damp with your own sweat. You shift, and the rustle of the straw is the first distinct sound you register. The air you breathe is heavy and used. It smells of sleep, of the unwashed bodies of your family packed into this one room, of stale wine from last night's meager meal, and something else, something musky and alive. You open your eyes. The room is still deep in shadow, the shapes of things more felt than seen. To your left, a low lump is your father, his heavy, rhythmic breathing a steady engine in the quiet. Near him, two smaller forms are your younger siblings, tangled together for warmth in the cooler hours before dawn, which now seem a distant memory. Your mother is already a ghost, her pallet empty. You can hear the faintest sound of movement from the other side of a heavy curtain that separates this main room from the small cooking hearth. And then you see the source of the musky smell. In the far corner, a shape detaches itself from the deeper shadows. Two faint glints of light catch the nascent dawn. It's the family goat. It lets out a soft, questioning bleat, its beard twitching. Bringing the goat inside at night is just common sense. Leaving it in the small, walled courtyard would be an open invitation to thieves, and the goat is worth more than almost everything else you own combined. It's your alarm clock, a source of milk, and a future meal, all rolled into one furry, four-legged package. It's also a constant, living reminder that your privacy settings are permanently stuck on public, with no option to change them. You push yourself up, your joints stiff. The room is small, impossibly so by modern standards. Maybe 10 feet by 12 feet. This is the main living area, the oikos. It is where you sleep, where you mend tools, where the women of the house weave, and where you huddle together in the winter. The walls are rough, made of sun-dried mud bricks stacked on a low stone foundation. You can see the straw mixed in with the clay, and in some places, the surface has crumbled away, revealing the humble guts of your home. The ceiling is a network of dark, wooden beams, supporting a roof of baked terracotta tiles. On rainy nights, you know exactly where to put the pots to catch the drips. There is no art on the walls. No decorations, save for a few pottery vessels stacked neatly against one wall. Your family's wealth is stored in a single, heavy wooden chest, the kibotos, its lid shut tight. It holds the few extra garments you own, perhaps a small bag of coins, and other small, precious things. Furniture is sparse. A couple of low, three-legged stools, a simple wooden table pushed against the wall, and that's about it. The aesthetic is what a high-end designer today might call brutalist minimalism, but it has less to do with a chosen style and more to do with the simple reality of your existence. You own what you need, and nothing more. Anything else is an encumbrance. Your mother appears from behind the curtain, a silhouette against the slightly brighter space of the tiny courtyard. She moves with a practiced quiet, not wanting to wake your father. Her feet are bare on the packed earth, just like yours. She nods at you, a silent greeting that says, "It's time to begin." There is no "good morning." The day is not an abstract concept to be wished well. It is a series of tasks, a mountain to be climbed, and you are already at its base. She hands you a small clay cup of water. It's lukewarm, tasting faintly of the earth and the pottery vessel it was stored in. You drink it slowly, savoring the moisture. This might be all you have until you get to a public fountain later. You watch as she moves to the hearth, a simple clay-lined pit in the corner of the courtyard area. She uses a small hand bellows to coax the embers from last night's fire back to life. The smell of wood smoke soon joins the complex aroma of the house. The light is strengthening now, changing from gray to a pale, washed-out yellow. It streams through the opening in the roof of the courtyard, the hype throne, and a dusty golden beam illuminates the center of the house, catching millions of dancing dust motes in its glare. This central, open-air courtyard is the heart of a typical Greek home. It's the source of light and air, such as it is. Most of the rooms of your small house open onto it. It's a design that's practical for the climate, intended to draw hot air up and out, but in the peak of summer, it offers little relief. It just funnels the heat. A mainstream historical fact is that Greek houses were designed with a clear division of space, reflecting the social order. The men had their own designated room, the andron, a space for hosting symposia, drinking parties, with their male friends. It was often the most decorated room, situated near the front door to keep visitors from moving deeper into the private areas of the home. The rest of the house, especially the upper floors if they existed, was the gynoecium, the domain of the women. This was their world, a place for weaving, raising children, and managing the household, theoretically separate from the public-facing world of men. Your family isn't wealthy enough for a dedicated, decorated andron. Your father meets his friends at a local kapellion, a tavern, or in the public square. Your house is a more modest affair, but the principle remains. Space is gendered. Your father will soon wake and depart for the agora, the marketplace, to conduct business, to talk politics, to be a citizen. Your mother, however, will spend her entire day within these walls or in the immediate vicinity, managing the household's meager resources. And here, historians still argue whether the gynoecium was a gilded cage or a protected sanctuary. Was the seclusion of women a form of patriarchal oppression, designed to control their lives and ensure the legitimacy of heirs? Or was it viewed as a position of honor, a way to shield the respectable women of the household from the grime and potential dangers of the public street, entrusting them with the vital role of managing the oikos? The answer is likely complex, varying by city-state and social class. For your mother, it is simply her reality. This small, sun-baked house is her kingdom, her workshop, and her world. Your younger brother stirs, coughing a dry, dusty cough. He sits up, rubbing his eyes, and immediately looks for the goat, which has now wandered over to sniff at his palate. The animal is a pet as much as a resource. The children treat it with a familiar affection that you've mostly outgrown. It's a strange, intimate sort of life. You share your sleeping space not just with family, but with livestock. This is a quirky little tidbit of daily life that often gets lost in the grand narratives of philosophy and war. In many urban homes, not just rural farmsteads, chickens, and sometimes even a pig or a goat, would be brought into the house at night. They were too valuable to be left to predators or thieves. It was a simple, practical form of security, even if it meant waking up to the smell of a barnyard in your bedroom. Your father grunts and rolls over. It's a signal that the day is truly beginning for everyone. He is a craftsman, a potter, perhaps, or a cobbler. His hands are calloused and strong. He sits up, his back cracking, and looks towards the courtyard where your mother is now grinding barley. The rhythmic, scraping sound of stone on stone is the soundtrack to your morning. He doesn't speak, but moves to a large clay amphora in the corner and splashes some water on his face. The gesture is economical, functional. The house is now filling with the low hum of activity. Your mother's grinding, your father's movements, your siblings whispering. But it's all contained within these clay walls. The concept of privacy, as you might understand it, simply does not exist here. Every sigh, every argument, every moment of sickness or intimacy is a semi-public event within the family unit. The walls are thin, and your neighbors live just a few feet away, in a house identical to your own. Their morning sounds are a faint echo of yours. You hear a baby crying from the house next door, the sharp words of a mother, the crowing of another rooster. Your neighborhood is a living organism, and you are just one cell within its larger body. You are left in the relative quiet of the house, with the grinding of the barley and the soft bleating of the goat. But the brief exposure to the outside world has changed the atmosphere. It has reminded you of the teeming, chaotic world that lies just beyond your door, a world you will have to step into soon enough. For now, you are in the gynoecium, the female space, the domestic sphere. You focus on the lentils in your lap, your fingers expertly flicking away tiny pieces of stone. Each one is a small victory against the grit and hardship of your world. The sun continues to climb. The shadows in the courtyard shrink. The heat presses down, a physical weight. Your home, this small fortress of mud and stone, feels less like a shelter and more like a trap. The day has barely begun, and you are already tired. Tired of the heat, tired of the cramped space, tired of the endless, repetitive tasks that define your existence. You look at your mother, her back straight as she grinds, her movements economical and powerful. Her face is a mask of concentration. She is the anchor of this world, the quiet engine that keeps it all running. And you, sitting here sorting lentils, are an apprentice to her life, learning the rhythms of survival in a world that offers little comfort and no escape. The goat nudges your hand, looking for a treat. You push its head away gently. Even the animals seem to understand. The day is long, and you must conserve your energy. The tiny stones and bits of dried chaff are now separated from the lentils, a small pile of debris on the side of the clay tray. Your fingers are dusty, and your back aches from crouching. Your mother takes the sorted lentils without a word and tips them into a pot for the main meal later in the day. Now, however, it is time for the morning's first, and often only, meal. It's an event so minimalist, so starkly functional, it barely qualifies as a meal by our standards. Modern intermittent fasting looks like an all-you-can-eat buffet compared to this. This is acratisma. Your mother takes the loaf of barley bread she baked a day or two ago. It's not soft and yielding. It's a dense, heavy disk, baked hard to make it last. She breaks off a piece for you, one for your siblings, and a smaller one for herself. She then goes to a large amphora in the corner, the one your father drank from last night, and pours a dark liquid into your cups. It's wine, but not the wine you might imagine. This is the everyday fuel of the Greek world, and it's always, always, mixed with water. Drinking wine undiluted, akraton, was considered the height of barbarism, something only a wild Thracian or a foolish Cyclops would do. The mixture, called akrasis, is mostly water with just enough wine to kill any unseen pathogens lurking in the supply and to add a few precious calories. Your cup is filled with this purplish, watery liquid. You take your piece of hard bread and dunk it into the cup, letting it soak for a moment to soften. This is breakfast. You chew the tough, wine-sodden bread slowly. It tastes sour, gritty, and faintly of raisins. There is no sweetness, no variety. Sometimes there might be a fig or an olive on the side, but today it is just bread and wine. You eat in silence, focused on the simple act of chewing and swallowing. Food is fuel. It is the energy you need to face the heat, the chores, the long, arduous day. The concept of eating for pleasure is a luxury reserved for the wealthy, for the symposium, for the festival feast. For you, it is about staving off the gnawing emptiness in your stomach for a few more hours. Once the last crust is gone and the last drop of watered wine is drained, the domestic machine shifts to its next phase. The house needs water. The large pottery jars, the pithoi, that store the day's supply are running low. Fetching water is a relentless, daily chore, and it is the work of the women and slaves of the household. It's your turn today. Your mother hands you the hydria, a large ceramic water jug. It's beautifully shaped, with 3 handles, 2 on the sides for lifting it when it's full, and a 3rd, vertical handle on the back for pouring. It's heavy even when empty, a dead weight on your hip. But you're not just going for water. The public fountain is also where you will perform your morning ablutions. It's time to bathe. Your mother gives you the rest of your kit. It's not a towel and a bar of soap. It's a small, round flask of clay called an arabios, filled with olive oil, and a wicked-looking curved bronze blade called a street lengus. This is your cleaning set. The oil is the soap. The blade is the washcloth. It's the original oil cleansing method, just with less soothing botanical extracts and more aggressively scraping your entire body with a piece of metal. You drape a coarse linen cloth over your head and shoulders, not for modesty, but to shield you from the sun, which is already beginning to feel punishing. You balance the empty hydria on your hip, clutch your bathing kit in your other hand, and push open the heavy front door. The world outside rushes in. The relative quiet of your home is shattered. The street is narrow, a cramped canyon between the blank-faced houses. There are no sidewalks. The road is just dirt and stones, and it's already littered with the day's first offerings of refuse. You can see vegetable peelings, a discarded scrap of leather, and the ever-present droppings from donkeys and goats. The air is thick with 100 smells. Baking bread from a commercial bakery down the lane, the acrid tang of a tannery, dust, human sweat, and the foul stench from a gutter that runs down the middle of the street. You begin to walk, your bare feet already accustomed to the uneven ground and the sharp surprise of a stray pebble. You will not get sandals until your feet have stopped growing, and even then, they are for special occasions. Your daily life is lived barefoot. You can feel the ground warming rapidly, a low-grade heat that will become a blistering torment by noon. You keep your head down, your eyes on the path ahead, avoiding the worst of the filth. Other women and girls are on the same errand, their own hydrias balanced on their heads or hips, their faces set in the same determined, impassive expression. There's a quiet camaraderie in this shared task, but little conversation. The walk is a chore, and the full water jug on the way back will require all your strength and concentration. After a few minutes of navigating the maze-like streets, you hear it, the sound of splashing water and the high-pitched chatter of dozens of voices. You have arrived at the public fountain, the Crean. It's one of the nerve centers of the neighborhood, a place of constant activity. The fountain isn't just a spout. It's a stone structure, often decorated with carved lion heads from which the water flows in cool, clear streams. A long stone basin runs underneath to catch the overflow. The area is crowded. Women of all ages are gathered here, jostling for a position, filling their jugs, washing clothes, and exchanging news and gossip. Slaves, identifiable by their rougher tunics and perhaps a branded mark, strain to lift the heavy, filled vessels onto their heads. It's a noisy, chaotic, and overwhelmingly female space. The men of the city are in the agora or their workshops. This is the women's public square. You find a spot at the edge of the basin, placing your empty hydria in the queue of jars to be filled. Now, for the bath. There is no private cubicle, no screen. You, and a dozen other girls and women, will wash right here, in the open. You slip off your tunic, folding it neatly and placing it on a dry patch of stone. For a moment, you stand naked under the increasingly hot sun. No one pays you much mind. Nudity in the context of bathing or athletics is not inherently shameful, merely functional. The first splash of water is a shock. It is cold, drawn from a deep underground spring, and it raises goosebumps on your skin despite the ambient heat. You use a smaller cup to douse your entire body, washing away the night's sweat and the dust of the walk. The cold is sharp, electric. It wakes you up more effectively than the sour wine ever could. Now for the oil. You unstopper your arabios and pour a generous amount of the greenish gold liquid into your palm. This is olive oil, the lifeblood of the Greek world. This single substance is your food, your fuel, your light, and your cleanser. This is a mainstream fact of your life. Olive oil is everything. It seasons your food. You burn it in your terracotta lamps to see at night. You offer it to the gods. Athletes are awarded amphorae filled with it, and you use it to clean your body. Its cultivation and trade are the bedrock of the economy. You begin to rub the oil all over your skin. It's a strange sensation, covering your wet body in a layer of grease. But the logic is sound. The oil combines with the dirt, the dust, the sweat, and the dead skin cells, lifting them from your pores. You work it in methodically. Your arms, your legs, your torso, your face. You are now a glistening, slippery mess. Next comes the Saint Lengus. You grip the bronze handle and press the curved blade against your skin, starting with your arms. You pull it downwards in a long, firm stroke. A thick, gray, waxy substance collects along the edge of the blade. This is the gloios, a disgusting mixture of oil, sweat, dirt, and exfoliated skin. You flick it onto the ground, where it joins the rest of the muck in the overflow channel. You continue this process over your entire body, scraping and flicking, scraping and flicking. It's a vigorous, almost violent way of getting clean. Your skin tingles and turns pink from the friction. But it is effective. When you are done, your skin feels incredibly smooth and strangely clean, despite the lack of lather and scented suds. This leads to a truly quirky historical tidbit. The gloios you're currently flicking away as worthless grime was, in another context, a valuable commodity. When famous athletes scraped themselves down in the gymnasium after exercising, their celebrity sweat and oil mixture was carefully collected by entrepreneurs. It was then bottled and sold as a popular ointment, believed to soothe aches, pains, and inflammation. People would pay good money to rub the scraped-off filth of a champion wrestler onto their sore muscles. It's perhaps the ancient world's most bizarre form of celebrity merchandise. You rinse off one last time with the cold, shocking water, the droplets beating on your now smooth, lightly oiled skin. There is no towel. The drying method is called evaporation, a process you assist by slicking the excess water from your limbs with your hands. You'll be dry in minutes under the hot Greek sun. You quickly pull your tunic back on over your damp body. The fabric feels cool for a moment before it, too, begins to warm. While you've been bathing, your hydria has reached the front of the line. You place it under one of the lion head spouts, and the gush of cool, clear water fills it with a deep, resonant drumming sound. Once it's full to the brim, the real work begins. You crouch, get a firm grip on the two side handles, and with a grunt of effort, lift the massive weight. It's a struggle to hoist it up and settle it on your hip or, if you're strong enough, onto a padded ring on your head. The water sloshes, threatening to spill. Every drop is precious. You can't afford to lose it. The walk home is a slow, careful balancing act. The weight of the water is immense, pressing down on your bones, straining the muscles in your back and neck. Now you understand the measured, graceful walk of the women you see carrying these pots. It's a grace born of necessity, the only way to carry such a burden without stumbling or losing your precious cargo. As you make your slow way back, you think about the other bathing options. For a small fee, you could have gone to a public bathhouse, a balnearium. There, you might have found heated rooms and tubs of warm water, a true luxury. These bathhouses were complex social arenas. And here, historians still argue about the social dynamics at play within them. Were they great democratic levelers, places where rich citizens, poor artisans, and even slaves could mingle in a state of shared nudity? Or were they subtly segregated, with different times for different classes, or with the wealthy claiming the best spots and the cleanest water, reinforcing the social hierarchy even when stripped of their clothes? The debate continues, but for you, it's academic. Your family cannot spare the coin for such a luxury. Your bath is the cold, public fountain. You finally reach your front door, your arms trembling with fatigue. You maneuver the heavy jug inside and, with your mother's help, tip its contents into the main storage pithos. The sound of the water splashing into the large jar is deeply satisfying. It is the sound of security, of having what you need for another day. You are clean, after a fashion. The household has water. The first great chores of the day are complete. But standing in the sweltering confines of your small home, your skin still damp, the smell of the filthy streets still clinging to your clothes, you feel a profound sense of weariness. The sun has not yet reached its peak. The hardest part of the day is still to come. You are about to step back out into that street, not for a quick errand, but to enter the public world of commerce and labor. And your bare feet already dread the feel of the scorching ground that awaits them. The heavy door groans shut behind you, and the world transforms. If your house was an oven, the street is the fire itself. The sun, now climbing higher in the bleached white sky, is a physical force. It strikes the top of your head, your shoulders, your arms. The thin linen cloth you wear offers pathetic protection. The light is blinding, a solid wall of brilliance that forces you to squint your eyes into narrow slits. All color is washed out, reduced to stark contrasts of glaring light and sharp, dark shadows. The heat rises in shimmering waves from the ground, distorting the air, making the world wiggle and dance. And your feet. Oh, your poor feet. The ground is no longer warming, it is hot. It's a vast, uneven griddle on which you are forced to walk. Your soles, calloused and tough from a lifetime of this, can withstand it, but only just. You walk with a quick, light step, a practiced dance to minimize contact with the hottest patches of sun-baked earth and stone. You are acutely aware of every single surface your foot touches. The soft, powdery dust. The sharp edge of a half-buried piece of pottery. The slick, treacherous patch of mud near a leaky drainpipe. Walking is not an unconscious act. It is a full-time, high-stakes negotiation with the ground beneath you. You've developed a kind of sixth sense, a filth dar, that helps you scan the path ahead and dodge the worst of the daily offerings. The street is a living entity, and it is profoundly, overwhelmingly filthy. Remember the waste you avoid inside your home? Out here, it's a public spectacle. The concept of organized sanitation is a distant dream. The local garbage service is called gravity, and the pickup schedule is whenever someone feels like it. People simply toss their household refuse out the door. As you walk, you navigate a minefield of fish bones, wilted greens, fruit peels, shards of broken ceramics, and puddles of indeterminate gray water. A lean, mangy dog darts past you, snatching a crust of bread from the muck. Flies are everywhere, a constant, buzzing cloud that rises from one pile of refuse only to settle on another a few feet away. The smell is staggering. It's a complex symphony of decay that you have long ago learned to filter, but it's always there, clinging to the back of your throat. There's the sour, vinegary stench of old wine dregs, the sharp ammonia of urine in the central gutter, the rotting sweetness of discarded food, and over it all, the pervasive, earthy smell of animal dung. Donkeys, goats, and chickens are as much a part of the traffic as people are, and they leave their marks everywhere. Today, you are lucky. The wind is blowing away from the tannery 2 streets over. On a bad day, its chemical reek, a smell that could stun a gorgon, blankets the entire neighborhood. And in a classic example of non-existent city planning, the tannery is right next to the largest bakery. The combination is an acquired taste. The noise is just as intense as the smell. The narrow streets, flanked by the tall, blank walls of houses, act as amplifiers. Every sound is sharpened, contained. You hear the rhythmic clang 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 of a blacksmith's hammer from a nearby workshop. The high-pitched, insistent braying of a donkey, laden with amphorae of oil, echoes down the lane. Merchants, who have set up temporary stalls in any available patch of shade, shout their prices, their voices hoarse and competing. 2 women lean out of window slits across the street from each other, carrying on a loud, rapid-fire conversation that serves as the neighborhood's morning news broadcast. Children, covered in a fine layer of dirt, chase each other with sticks, their shrieks of laughter adding to the cacophony. There is no peace. There is no quiet. The city is a roaring, breathing beast. Your path is not a straight line. The streets of this old city, let's call it Athens, grew organically over centuries. They are a tangled, confusing web of narrow lanes, blind alleys, and sudden, unexpected turns. This is a key historical fact about urban planning. While newer colonial cities or those rebuilt after a disaster, like Miletus, might be laid out on the revolutionary Hippodamian grid plan, a logical system of straight, right-angled streets, you are stuck in the ancient, chaotic original. There is no grand avenue, no logical flow. To a stranger, it would be an impenetrable labyrinth. But to you, it is home. You know that to get to the agora, you must turn left at the house with the leaky drainpipe, follow the curve past the potter's kiln, and then cut through the narrow passage so tight that 2 people cannot pass without turning sideways. As you scurry along, you keep your ears open as much as your eyes. You're listening for the dreaded cry of "Ekbalo." I'm throwing it out. This is the only warning you might get before a householder, hidden behind their wall, empties a bucket of wastewater or scraps out of an upper-story window. You've learned from painful, smelly experience to flinch and jump at the sound. Today, a shower of fish-scented water lands just a few feet behind you with a wet smack, and you offer a silent prayer of thanks for your quick reflexes. Beneath your feet, buried under layers of packed earth and filth, lies another, stranger world. This is a quirky, slightly sinister tidbit of Greek life, the use of curse tablets or curse jars. If someone had a rival in business, a competitor in a chariot race, or an opponent in a legal dispute, they might pay a specialist to create a curse. This curse would be inscribed on a thin sheet of lead or a piece of pottery, invoking various underworld deities to bind, hinder, or ruin the target. These cursed objects, sometimes called choi, were then often buried near the victim's house, near a public well like the one you just bathed at, or in a graveyard, believing the proximity would make the magic more effective. So as you tread carefully through the streets, you are walking over a hidden spiritual minefield of forgotten hatreds and desperate, magical attacks. You're halfway to the agora now, and the heat is becoming a serious concern. The sun is relentless. There is no concept of sunscreen. Your primary defense is the cloth on your head and your body's own ability to tan and endure. The glare reflecting off the light-colored walls of the houses is painful. You feel the heat on your skin not as a pleasant warmth, but as a baking, oppressive force that saps your strength. Dust, kicked up by your feet and the passage of a cart, coats your skin, sticking to the faint layer of oil left from your bath. It gets in your eyes, your nose, your mouth. You cough, and the air you draw back in is hot and dry. This is the simple reality of a Greek summer day, a battle against dehydration, sunstroke, and exhaustion. The streets are getting more crowded as you approach the city center. You are no longer just passing other women on domestic errands. Now there are men striding purposefully towards the agora, farmers driving stubborn mules laden with produce, and slaves hurrying on their master's business. The social fabric of the city is on full display. You see a wealthy citizen, his fine linen chiton impeccably clean, walking with his head held high, a slave clearing a path before him. You see a group of rough-looking laborers, their bodies muscular and deeply tanned, laughing loudly as they head towards a construction site. You make yourself small, keeping to the edge of the thoroughfare, trying to be as invisible as possible. As a young woman, drawing attention to yourself in the public street is unwise. This intense, visceral experience of the street leads to an ongoing scholarly discussion. Historians and archaeologists still debate the true daily reality of Greek urban sanitation. The literary sources and the archaeological evidence paint a grim picture of filth and chaos, as you're experiencing now. Some scholars argue that it truly was a pestilential nightmare, where life was a constant battle against disease fostered by the squalor. Others, however, suggest that we might be underestimating the ancient Greeks. They propose that there were likely informal, community-based systems for waste management, perhaps designated refuse pits on the edge of town, and that the streets might have been periodically cleaned by public slaves or through other rudimentary civic works. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle, a system far filthier than anything we would tolerate, but perhaps just organized enough to prevent a total collapse into plague and pestilence on a daily basis. For you, however, there is no debate. The street is what it is, a challenge to be endured. The heat is blistering your feet. The noise is a headache. The smell is a constant assault. You are on an errand for your mother, to buy a small measure of barley and perhaps a handful of olives from a merchant she trusts in the agora. You clutch the few small coins, bulls, in your hand. They are warm and slick with sweat. Finally, you emerge from the last narrow, twisting lane into a wider, more open space. The noise level doubles. The crowd thickens into a solid, moving river of humanity. You have reached the edge of the Agora of Athens. It is a vast, sprawling open square, bordered by impressive public buildings. The Stoa Poikile, the painted porch, the Bouleuterion, council house, various temples. But the open space itself is a chaotic explosion of commerce. Hundreds of temporary stalls, shaded by flimsy wicker awnings, are crammed together. The air is thick with the competing smells of spices, grilled fish, fresh bread, and cheap perfume. The roar of thousands of people bargaining, arguing, and socializing is a physical wave of sound that washes over you. This is the heart of your city. It's where justice is administered, where politics are debated, where philosophers teach, and where anything and everything is for sale. Your father is somewhere in this churning mass of people. But you are not here to participate in the grand civic life. You are here on a simple, domestic mission. You take a deep breath, steeling yourself against the sensory overload, and plunge into the crowd. The heat, the filth, and the noise of the streets were just the prelude. The real business of the day, the struggle of the marketplace, is about to begin. Your feet, already burning, protest as you step onto the sun-scorched flagstones of the great square. You plunge into the churning sea of people that is the Agora. The air, which in the residential lanes was merely hot and dusty, is now thick with 1,000 new scents and a deafening roar of commerce. Here, the raw, unfiltered energy of your city is concentrated into a brilliant, chaotic spectacle. You pull the cloth tighter over your head, a flimsy shield against the sun and the press of the crowd, and begin your search for the barley merchant. Your path is a slow, shuffling weave through a dense forest of bodies. You pass a stall selling fragrant spices from the east, their rich aroma a brief, luxurious respite from the stench of sweat and grime. Next to it, a fishmonger bellows, holding up a large, silvery sea bass, its eyes glassy in the heat. The ground here is slick with fish scales and melted ice water, a treacherous footing for your bare feet. You sidestep a pile of olive pits and keep moving, your eyes scanning for the familiar striped awning of the grain merchant's stand. Your route takes you past a section of the market dedicated to metal goods. The rhythmic clang of hammers is louder here, and the air smells of hot metal and charcoal fires. And it is here that you stop, just for a moment, transfixed by a sight that is both mundane and deeply unsettling. A craftsman, his face and powerful arms slick with sweat and blackened with soot, is carefully polishing a bronze helmet. It sits on a wooden stand, its curved cheek plates gleaming, the horsehair crest waiting to be attached. It is a thing of terrible beauty, an object designed for the singular purpose of keeping a man's skull from being split open. This is the reality that underpins everything you see around you: the philosophy, the democracy, the commerce. It is all built on a foundation of bronze and muscle, on the citizen's duty to become a soldier. Your father, your neighbors, the men you see arguing politics and examining pottery, they all live a double life. They are craftsmen and farmers, yes, but they are also warriors in waiting. The constant threat of war is not an abstract political concern. It is a permanent feature of your world. War isn't a shocking emergency. It's more like a terrible, recurring seasonal allergy that flares up every summer and might just kill you. When the crops are growing and the weather is good for marching, the city-states of Greece go to war. It is the natural order of things. You look at the man pricing a pair of bronze greaves, the curved armor that protects the shins. He is young, perhaps only a few years older than you, his face a mask of nervous calculation. He runs a hand over the smooth, cool metal, then looks at the coins in his own palm. You know the look. It's the look of someone staring at a cost that is almost insurmountable. This is the central, brutal fact of being a citizen. You are your own defense. The state does not issue you a rifle and a uniform. You must purchase your own equipment, your panoply. And the cost is ruinous. Getting the full kit costs more than your house. It makes you wonder if it would be cheaper to just build a wall around yourself and not go. A full set of hoplite armor is a family's fortune. First, the shield, the aspis. It's a huge, concave dish of wood, faced with a thin layer of bronze, nearly 3 feet across. Its defining feature is the central armband, the porpax, and a hand grip at the rim, the anti-lave, a design that distributes its immense weight across the entire forearm. It can weigh 15 pounds or more. Then comes the helmet, the kranos, which can be a simple Corinthian style that covers the entire face, leaving only slits for the eyes and mouth, or a more open-faced design. Add the breastplate, the thorax, which could be a bell-shaped piece of solid bronze or, for the slightly less wealthy, made of layers of stiffened linen called linothorax. Then the bronze greaves, a long spear, doru, with a bronze head and a sharp butt spike, and a short, leaf-shaped iron sword, the xiphos, for close in fighting. The total weight is staggering, 50, 60, even 70 pounds of wood, bronze, and iron. The total cost is a lifetime of savings. Your own father's aspis hangs on the wall of your small house. It is the family's most prized possession. You remember the years of scrimping, the meals made smaller, the extra work your father took on, all to afford that single, essential piece of equipment that allowed him to take his place in the battle line and thus remain a full citizen with political rights. To be a citizen is to be a hoplite. To be unable to afford the armor is to be something less. As you continue walking, the weight of this reality settles on you. The agora is full of men, but you now see them differently. You see the slight limp in the stride of an older man, and you wonder if it's from a decades-old spear wound received at Marathon. You see the network of fine white scars on another man's forearm, and you know they were not earned in a workshop. These are the walking wounded, the survivors. For every one of them, how many others did not come back? How many families were shattered, their farms left to ruin, their workshops closed? Your society doesn't have support systems for veterans or pensions for widows. There is only the grim expectation that you will bear your losses with stoic dignity. The core of your city's military power lies in a simple, terrifying formation, the phalanx. This is the mainstream fact that governs warfare. It's not about individual heroes dueling, despite what the poets like Homer sing about. It is about a block of men, hundreds of them, standing shoulder to shoulder in tight ranks, typically 8 deep. Each man's large aspis protects not only his own front but also the right side of the man to his left. The result is a solid wall of overlapping shields, from which protrudes a forest of deadly, 9-foot spears. To face a charging phalanx is to face a human bulldozer made of bronze and courage. Its strength is not in individual skill but in absolute cohesion. You must trust the man to your left, the man to your right, the man at your back. If one man falters, a gap opens, and the entire formation can be destroyed. It is the ultimate team sport, where the price of failure is annihilation. And the mechanics of that collision are still a subject of intense scholarly focus. Historians still debate the othismos, or the push. When two phalanxes met, was it a literal, physical shoving match? Did the men in the back ranks, who couldn't even reach the enemy with their spears, place their shields on the backs of the men in front of them and physically push with all their might, trying to steamroll the enemy through sheer brute force? Or was the othismos more of a metaphor for maintaining psychological pressure, a series of controlled thrusts and withdrawals, where the goal was to break the enemy's nerve, not his line? The surviving texts are ambiguous, leaving us to imagine the unbelievable, claustrophobic horror of that moment of impact. You pass another stall, this one selling second-hand armor. A dented helmet, a breastplate with a patch, and several shields. The shields are fascinating. This is a quirky little area where a bit of individuality was permitted. While some states, like Sparta with its iconic lambda, enforced a uniform shield design, many hoplites decorated their aspis with a personal emblem, or episemen. You see a shield for sale painted with a fierce scorpion, its tail poised to strike. Another has a glaring gorgon's head, its tongue out and snakes for hair, meant to terrify the enemy and turn them to stone, metaphorically at least. You see others with lions, boars, or abstract geometric patterns. It was the ultimate form of self-expression, the ancient equivalent of a custom phone case, but instead of a picture of your dog, you get a screaming gorgon to intimidate your enemies. This sight makes you think of your brother. He is approaching the age of military service. Soon, he will need his own panoply. The thought fills you with a cold dread. It means more years of desperate saving. It means watching him train, watching him transform from a boy into a potential casualty. It means the terror of another summer campaign, another loved one marching out of the city gates, his face hidden behind a bronze mask, swallowed by the dust of the road. The burden is not just financial or physical, it's psychological, and it permeates the culture. You are raised on stories of martial glory, of the heroes at Thermopylae and the victory at Salamis. But you also live with the quiet, ever-present fear. You see it in your mother's eyes when a herald arrives in the city with news from the front. You feel it in the collective hush that falls over the agora as the message is read out, a list of the victorious and the dead. You finally spot the grain merchant's stall, tucked away between a seller of cheap pottery and a man offering leather straps. You navigate the last few feet of the crowd and stand before the merchant, a grim-faced man with flour dusting his beard. You hold out your coins and state your need in a quiet voice. He measures out the barley, his movements practiced and efficient, pouring the grains into the small sack you brought. The transaction is completed. Your errand is done. But as you turn to begin the long walk home, the sights of the agora have changed something in you. You no longer just see a marketplace. You see the engine of a war machine. The grain you carry will feed a future soldier. The money the merchant makes will help pay his taxes for the upkeep of the navy. The men he bargains with will soon stand next to each other in a line of shields and spears. Life and death, commerce and war, are woven together so tightly they are impossible to separate. Your society is a militarized one, and the weight of that truth feels as heavy as the sack of grain in your hand and the hot sun on your back. You turn away from the chaotic heart of the agora, the small sack of barley a comforting, solid weight in your hand. The journey home begins, retracing your steps through the maze of hot, noisy streets. The sun is higher now, more brutal. The shadows are smaller, offering less refuge. Your thoughts are still heavy with the images of armor and the constant, simmering threat of war that defines your world. You pass a group of boys, none older than 10, playing in the dusty street. They are using sticks as swords, yelping and laughing as they stage a mock battle. It's a common sight, the innocent play of children mimicking the deadly business of their fathers. And a thought, cold and sharp, cuts through the heat. As hard as your father trains, as much as your family has sacrificed for his armor, as ever-present as the fear of the summer campaign is, it is nothing. Your society, for all its martial demands, is a paradise of gentle leisure compared to the stories you hear from the south, from the land of Laconia. Your mind drifts to the one place that all other Greeks speak of with a mixture of fear, contempt, and grudging admiration: Sparta. Thinking of Sparta is like trying to imagine a world of a different color. Here in your city, you are a citizen who is also a soldier. Your life is your own, but you owe a debt of service to the state. In Sparta, there is no also. A Spartan citizen, a Spartiate, does not have a job. He is his job, and that job is war. The state is not a part of his life. His life is the property of the state, from the moment of his birth to the moment of his death. You try to imagine it. You think of the babies born in your own neighborhood, celebrated and cherished. In Sparta, a baby's life is not a family affair, it is a state matter. You have heard the chilling tales. When a male infant is born, he is not swaddled and cooed over. He is taken by his father to be inspected by the elders of his tribe. They examine him not with love, but with the cold, practical eye of a farmer judging livestock. They check his limbs, his back, his head. They are looking for perfection. If the infant is deemed weak, sickly, or in any way deformed, he is rejected. He is a faulty piece of equipment, unfit for the Spartan machine. And for those rejected infants, there is no compassion. The judgment is a death sentence. They are taken to a deep chasm in the mountains, a place called the apothete, the deposits, and left there to die of exposure. The state has no use for weakness. It is a system of relentless, state-enforced eugenics, designed to cultivate a master race of warriors. Every Spartan must be a perfect specimen, or he is nothing. If the boy passes this first, terrible test, he is returned to his mother, but only for a short while. For 7 years, he is raised in her care, but even this is regulated. Spartan nurses were famous throughout Greece for their methods, never swaddling a child, allowing it freedom of movement, feeding it plain, simple food, teaching it not to be afraid of the dark or of being alone. They are conditioning the child for the hardship to come. Because at the age of 7, his childhood ends. He is removed from his family, from his mother and father, and enrolled in the agoge. This is the infamous Spartan public education system, and it makes the strictest boarding school you can imagine look like a week-long music festival. He is organized into a herd, or agala, with other boys his age. He will live with them, eat with them, sleep with them, and suffer with them for the next 13 years. Home is no longer his family's house, it is the barracks. His life becomes a relentless cycle of brutal training. He is taught to read and write, but only as much as is necessary. The real curriculum is pain, deprivation, and obedience. The boys are kept barefoot year-round, their feet toughened by the harsh terrain. They are given only one garment to wear, a simple cloak, for both summer and winter. They sleep on beds of reeds, which they must gather themselves from the riverbank, without a knife. They are deliberately underfed. Hunger is a constant companion, a dull ache in the belly. This is by design. The state wants its boys to be lean, tough, and resourceful. They are encouraged to steal food to supplement their meager rations. The crime is not in the stealing, but in getting caught. A boy caught in the act is punished severely, not for the theft, but for his incompetence. It is a practical lesson in stealth, cunning, and risk. This leads to a well-known, mainstream fact of Spartan life, the ritual trial at the altar of Artemis Orthia. To prove their courage and endurance, adolescent boys would take part in the diamastagosis, a brutal ceremony where they were mercilessly flogged. The goal was to endure the whipping without crying out, to stand stoically as the lash tore at their back. It was a religious rite, a public spectacle, and a terrifying rite of passage. Some boys, it is said, died under the lash rather than show any sign of weakness, their deaths seen as a victory. And the food they did get was the stuff of legend, for all the wrong reasons. You've heard travelers talk about the infamous Spartan black broth, the milos zomos. It is a quirky, disgusting staple of their diet. The recipe is simple and foul. Boiled pig's blood, pork, salt, and vinegar. It was so notoriously awful that a wealthy merchant from Sybaris, a city famous for its luxury, once tasted it and declared that he finally understood why Spartans were not afraid to die. A truly 5-star review of their national dish. But for the boys of the agoge, it was sustenance, another test of their ability to endure the unpleasant without complaint. The entire system is a crucible designed to burn away individuality, fear, and comfort, leaving only a hardened soldier, unquestioningly obedient to the state. And within this brutal, all-male environment of the barracks, other relationships formed. Historians still debate the true nature of Spartan pederasty. Was the bond between a senior warrior, the Erastes, and a youth, the Eromenos, a formal, state-sanctioned part of the training, a mentorship designed to instill Spartan values of courage and honor, which may have included a physical component? Or was it simply an unregulated and often abusive consequence of housing boys and men together in a hyper-masculine, military environment? The sources are written by outsiders and are notoriously difficult to interpret, leaving the emotional and physical reality of these relationships shrouded in mystery. As you walk, You shift the bag of grain from one shoulder to the other, the simple act of carrying food for your family feeling like a profound luxury. You think of your own life, confined as it is to the house and the immediate neighborhood. And then you think of a Spartan woman. Her life is a paradox that fascinates and confuses all of Greece. She lives in the same rigid, militaristic state as the men, but her experience is starkly different from your own. She is not hidden away in a gyneceum. She is not taught that her place is to be silent and unseen. From a young age, a Spartan girl receives a public education, just like her brothers. She competes in athletics, her body hardened by running, wrestling, discus, and javelin. She is famously outspoken, confident, and seen by other Greeks as shockingly immodest, wearing a short tunic that allows her legs freedom of movement. But this liberation is not for her own self-fulfillment. It has one singular purpose, dictated by the state. A Spartan woman's body is a public asset. Her health and strength are cultivated for one reason: to produce healthy, strong children for the agoge. Her primary value, her entire social standing, is tied to her womb. Her empowerment was less, you can be anything you want to be, and more, you can be a state-approved baby factory. Now go do some javelin throws to strengthen your core. The famous words of Spartan mothers to their sons marching off to war, "Come back with your shield, or on it," is the perfect encapsulation of this ethos. A glorious death is preferable to a cowardly life, and a mother's pride is in her son's heroic sacrifice for the state, not in his survival. You try to imagine your own mother saying such a thing to your father or brother and find it impossible. Your family is a unit of love and mutual support. A Spartan family is a breeding program for the army. And how is this bizarre, all-consuming focus on military training possible? Because the Spartan citizens do no real work. The entire edifice of their society is built on the backs of a vast population of slaves, the Helots. They are the descendants of the people the Spartans conquered generations ago. The Helots outnumber the Spartiates by perhaps 10 to 1. They work the land, grow the food, and perform all the manual labor, freeing up every Spartan male for a lifetime of military training. The Helots are not treated like the slaves in your own city, who are at least considered private property. The Helots are property of the state, bound to the land they work. And they are kept in a state of perpetual terror. Every year, the leaders of Sparta, the ephors, would formally declare war on the Helot population, making it legal to kill them without consequence. The most promising young men in the agoge would be sent out as part of a secret police, the Crypteia, to spy on the Helots, living in the countryside, armed only with a dagger. Their mission was to terrorize the slave population, to murder any Helot who showed signs of leadership or rebellion. It was a constant, low-grade war of oppression to ensure the foundation of their society never crumbled. Your feet are sore. The heat is making you dizzy. You see the familiar shape of your own street up ahead, the door to your house. And the sight fills you with an overwhelming sense of relief. Your life is hard. Your world is circumscribed. But it is your own. Your home, as small and hot as it is a sanctuary, not a barracks. Your family is bound by affection, not state decree. The thoughts of Sparta fade as you reach your front door, the brutal, black and white world of the Spartan machine dissolving back into the dusty, colorful chaos of your own reality. You push the door open, stepping out of the glaring sun and into the familiar shadows of your home, profoundly grateful that you were not born a Spartan. You step across the threshold of your home, and the familiar, stuffy air envelops you. The world outside, with its noise and its heat and its ghosts of war, is shut away behind the heavy wooden door. Your mother takes the sack of barley from you, her hands dusty with flour. She gives you a nod of acknowledgement, the silent language of your shared domestic life. The relief you felt on the journey home, the gratitude for not being Spartan, settles deeper. Here, at least, there is a semblance of family, of personal life, separate from the all-consuming demands of the state. But as your eyes adjust to the gloom, you are reminded that your freedom is built on the bondage of others. In the corner of the courtyard, another person is at work. She is a Thracian woman, captured in a raid years ago and sold in the slave market right there in the agora you just left. Her name is Lyra, but no one uses it. She is just the slave. She is scrubbing laundry in a large stone basin, her back bent, her movements tired but efficient. In your world, getting some help around the house doesn't mean hiring a cleaner. It means going to the market to buy one. Slavery here is not like the state-controlled system of the Spartan helots. It is a private, domestic institution, woven so deeply into the fabric of your society that you can't imagine life without it. Even a moderately successful craftsman's family, like your own, might own a slave. Wealthier families have dozens. They are the invisible engines of the city. They work in the kitchens, care for the children, carry water from the fountains, and accompany their masters in public. They are, as one philosopher would later write, talking tools. Her life is one of absolute subjugation. She is property. Your father could sell her tomorrow if he needed the money. He could beat her for a mistake, and no one would intervene. Her testimony in a law court would only be considered valid if it were extracted under torture, the horrifying logic being that only pain could force a slave to tell the truth. Her children, if she were allowed to have any, would be born slaves, the property of your family. You watch her wringing out a tunic, her face expressionless. You wonder what she thinks about, what memories she has of her own home, her own family, before she was stolen and turned into a piece of property. But you do not ask. You have been taught not to see her as a person with an inner life, but as a function, a resource. The normalization of this cruelty is one of the most profound and disturbing aspects of your world. The Thracian woman coughs, a dry, racking sound. She has had it for weeks. This draws your thoughts to another, more universal form of bondage, the vulnerability of every human body to sickness. Her cough reminds you of the fragility that binds you all, slave and free alike. When illness strikes, your world, with all its philosophy and art, is rendered utterly powerless. There are no hospitals, no emergency rooms, no antibiotics. Healthcare is a desperate cocktail of herbs, prayers, and blind hope. If you were to fall ill with a fever, your mother would become your doctor. She would draw on generations of folk wisdom, applying cool cloths to your forehead, forcing you to drink foul-tasting herbal infusions. She might perform a quirky, almost unconscious ritual, like spitting 3 times into the folds of her own tunic to ward off the evil eye, which could be blamed for the sickness. This belief in spitting as a ward against malevolent forces is a common, everyday superstition, a tiny piece of reflexive magic against a hostile world. If the fever worsened, your family's options would narrow alarmingly. They could pay a traveling physician, a man who might have some practical knowledge of anatomy from treating wounded soldiers, but who possessed no true scientific understanding of disease. He might prescribe a purge or a diet of specific foods, his advice based on the still developing theories of the 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. An imbalance, he would claim, is the cause of your sickness. His remedies are a shot in the dark. When these mortal efforts fail, you turn to the gods. Your father would make a sacrifice at the local temple, perhaps a chicken or a small cake, begging Apollo or Hygiea for mercy. If your condition became truly dire, they would undertake a journey of last resort, a pilgrimage to a sanctuary of Asclepius, the god of healing. This is the highest form of medical care available. The mainstream approach when all else fails is to place yourself entirely in the hands of the divine. You would travel to a place like Epidaurus, to the god's great temple complex. There, after performing rites of purification, you would enter a long dormitory called the abaton and go to sleep. This practice, known as incubation, is central to the cult. You sleep in the god's house, hoping he will visit you in your dreams. You might dream of the god himself, a kindly, bearded figure, touching your afflicted body part and healing it. Or you might dream of a snake, the god's sacred animal, licking your wounds. In the morning, you would tell your dream to a priest, who would interpret its meaning and prescribe a course of treatment based on this divine revelation. The temple walls are lined with stelae, stone tablets left by grateful pilgrims, testifying to the miraculous cures they received, the blind regaining sight, the lame walking, the mute speaking. Whether these are true miracles, psychosomatic events, or clever marketing by the priests, you do not know. You only know that it is your last, best hope. Getting a second opinion didn't involve seeing another specialist. It involved sacrificing a rooster to a different god and hoping he wasn't on vacation. The slave woman's cough, a simple ailment that a future world would cure with a cheap pill, could easily spiral into a fatal pneumonia. Your world is one where a small, infected cut can lead to agonizing death, where childbirth is a mortal danger for mother and child, and where plagues can sweep through the city, leaving thousands dead in their wake. Your body is a fragile vessel in a sea of unknown threats, and your only navigators are superstition and prayer. This control over the physical body, the ownership of the slave, the state's claim on the soldier, the god's dominion over sickness, is mirrored by the state's control over the mind. You are free, but only within carefully prescribed limits. You can participate in the democracy, you can speak your mind in the assembly, but you cannot question the fundamental pillars of the society. To do so is to risk everything. And everyone in your city knows the ultimate cautionary tale, the story of Socrates. He wasn't a distant figure from a book. Just a few years ago, he was a physical presence in your city. You might have seen him in the agora, a strange, ugly old man with a snub nose and bulging eyes, barefoot and dressed in a shabby cloak. He didn't have a stall. He didn't sell anything. He just talked. and asked questions. His crime was essentially running the world's most annoying pop-up philosophy class in the middle of the busiest public space, and the city finally got tired of his endless rhetorical questions. He would approach a powerful politician, a famous general, or a respected poet and engage him in conversation. He would start simply, asking for a definition. What is justice? What is piety? What is courage? Then, with a series of relentless, piercing questions, he would dismantle their confident answers, revealing that they knew nothing at all. He called himself a gadfly, sent by the gods to sting the lazy horse of Athens into action. To the city's powerful, he was a dangerous menace. To the young men who followed him, fascinated by his intellect, he was an idol. And so the state decided to crush him. He was formally charged with impiety, not believing in the gods of the city, and corrupting the youth. He was put on trial before a jury of 501 of your fellow citizens. He could have groveled, begged for mercy, and accepted a punishment of exile. But that was not his way. He defended himself with logic and irony, arguing that he was not a criminal but a benefactor to the state. When the jury narrowly found him guilty, he was asked to propose an alternative punishment to the death penalty sought by his accusers. Instead of suggesting exile, he stated that for his service to Athens, he deserved to be rewarded with free meals for life at the Prytaneum, an honor reserved for Olympic champions and heroes. The jury was enraged by his arrogance. On the second vote, they condemned him to death by a much wider margin. His fate was sealed. The story of his final hours is one you've heard whispered. He spent his last day in prison, calmly discussing the nature of the soul with his distraught friends, refusing their offers to help him escape. When the sun set, the executioner brought him the cup of poison hemlock. He drank it without fear, and as the numbness spread from his legs up through his body, he continued to speak, a philosopher to the very end. The execution of Socrates sent a chilling message through the city. Democracy, you learned, was not about unlimited freedom of thought. It was the freedom of the collective, and that collective had the power to extinguish any individual who questioned its core beliefs too loudly. To this day, historians and philosophers argue about the real reasons for his death. Was he a genuine threat to the state religion? Was it a political trial in disguise, a settling of old scores for his association with figures who had harmed Athens during the recent wars? Or was a city, traumatized by defeat and plague, simply lashing out at an easy, irritating target? The debate is for the scholars. For you, the lesson is simple and terrifying. Your mind, like your body, is not entirely your own. There are lines you must not cross, questions you must not ask. The city that prides itself on freedom has shown that it is more than willing to kill one of its own to protect its fragile consensus. You live in the shadow of that cup of hemlock. The shadows in the courtyard are growing long, painting stripes of cool gray across the sun-baked earth. The heat of the day is finally beginning to break, losing its vicious edge and softening into the warmth of a late afternoon. Your father returns from the agora, his face tired and streaked with the grime of the city. But there is a different energy in the air today. A thrum of excitement, of communal anticipation, that overrides the daily exhaustion. From the center of the city, you can hear the distant, faint sound of pipes and the low roar of a great crowd. It is the time of the city Dionysia. This is not mere entertainment. It is a civic and religious obligation, a multi-day festival dedicated to Dionysus, the god of wine, theater, and ecstatic release. Today is the day of the tragedies. Your family will attend. It is expected. Your father puts down his tools, and your mother packs a small cloth bundle, a loaf of bread, some olives, and a wineskin filled with the same watered-down wine that you drink every day. These are the provisions that will have to last you for many, many hours. You walk together as a family, joining the river of people flowing towards the southern slope of the Acropolis. The streets are even more crowded now, but the mood is festive, boisterous. People are wearing wreaths of ivy, and some of the men have already been drinking heavily, their voices loud and their laughter echoing in the narrow lanes. You cling to your mother's hand, a young woman navigating a public space that feels both exciting and vaguely threatening. You arrive at the theater of Dionysus, and the sheer scale of it takes your breath away. It's a vast, semicircular bowl carved into the hillside, a sea of stone benches rising tier after tier. It can hold 17,000 people. 17,000 souls, all packed together under the open sky. You find your family's place, high up on the hard stone seats. There are no backrests, no cushions unless you were wise enough to bring one. Down below, in the front row, are the grand marble thrones, the prohedria, reserved for the priests, magistrates, and other dignitaries. They may have the best seats, but even they don't have private bathrooms. The lack of facilities is the great equalizer. For the next 8 hours, everyone has to hold it. The presence of women in the theater is a complicated issue. But scholars still debate whether respectable women, like you and your mother, were regular attendees, especially for the body comedies that will be shown on other days. Some ancient writers seem to imply it was a man's world. But here you are, a testament that at least some women attended the tragedies. You look around and see other family groups, though the crowd is overwhelmingly male. You sit between your parents, a small island of family in an ocean of citizens. The festival is a competition. This is a core historical fact of the Dionysia. 3 playwrights have been chosen to present their work, each one funded by a wealthy citizen, the choregos, who pays for the costumes, the training of the chorus, and the musicians as a form of liturgy or public service. It is his chance to gain fame and prestige for his civic generosity. At the end of the festival, a jury will vote on the best trilogy of plays. As the sun begins its long descent, the first performance begins. It's the start of a trilogy of tragedies, perhaps by the great Sophocles. The story is one you know well, a myth that is part of your cultural DNA. There is no suspense about the plot. You know that Oedipus will kill his father and marry his mother. You know that Antigone will defy the king to bury her brother. The power is not in the surprise, but in the spectacle, the poetry, and the emotional journey, the catharsis. The actors enter. They are all men, even those playing the female roles. They wear large, stylized masks with exaggerated expressions of grief or rage, their voices amplified by a small megaphone-like cone built into the mosque's mouth. They wear thick-soled boots called kothornoi to make them appear taller, more heroic. Their gestures are large, declamatory, meant to be seen from the highest seats. And then there is the chorus. Imagine watching the most intense family drama, and every 10 minutes, a dozen men in matching outfits march onto the circular stage, the orchestra, to sing and dance a highly poetic commentary on what you just saw. It's like a living, previously on, segment, guiding your emotions and explaining the deeper, moral significance of the action. The hours crawl by. The sun beats down on you. The stone bench is unforgiving, and your back begins to ache. The man next to your father is already drunk, his breath sour. The heat from the thousands of bodies packed around you creates a stuffy, human-scented atmosphere. You nibble at your bread and take a small sip of wine, rationing it carefully. This is the original binge watch, but instead of a comfortable couch, it is a hot stone bench, and instead of hitting next episode, you just wait for the sun to move another agonizing inch across the sky. A moment of high drama concludes. A character, screaming in despair, runs back through the central doors of the stage building, the scheme. A moment later, a terrible cry is heard from within. Acts of extreme violence are almost never shown on stage. It is considered unseemly. But you will see the results. This brings us to a quirky and grisly piece of stagecraft, the ekuklema. A wheeled platform is rolled out from the doors, and on it is a carefully arranged tableau of death, the bodies of the characters who were just killed, off stage, their costumes artfully smeared with red dye to simulate blood. The crowd gasps. The chorus begins a low, mournful chant. You see the consequences of the hero's tragic flaw, laid bare for all to see. Play after play, the sun burns its path across the sky. The stories are relentless, a parade of human suffering. Hubris punished by the gods. Families torn apart by curses. Kings brought low by their own pride. You feel the emotions washing over the crowd, a collective wave of pity and terror. This is the purpose of the drama. To purge these emotions, to leave you drained but somehow cleansed, your own troubles put into perspective by the monumental suffering of heroes. Finally, as the sky turns a deep orange and the first stars begin to appear, the final play, a short, bawdy, and ridiculous satyr play, concludes. It is over. 17,000 people, stiff, sore, sunburnt, and emotionally exhausted, rise as one. You are stiff, dehydrated, and drained. Your head thrums from the sun and the constant noise. You stumble out of the theater, back into the now dark streets, your mind filled with the echoes of tragic poetry and the images of masked gods and fallen heroes. The festival was a spectacle, a religious duty, and a profound communal experience. But more than anything, it was an ordeal. A test of physical and emotional endurance that has left you utterly spent. You trudge home in the darkness, ready for the dreamless sleep of the truly exhausted. And as you finally lie down on your simple straw pallet, the hard-packed earth beneath you, the sounds of the city begin to fade into a low, distant hum. Let the memory of the scorching sun and the unforgiving stone benches dissolve. Feel the day's heat finally radiating away from your body, leaving a profound and welcome coolness in its wake. The weight of the water jug, the sting of the bronze scraper, the burden of the hoplite's shield, let it all drift away now. These are just echoes from a world of stone and toil, a story that has been told. The relentless demands of that ancient life can be released, replaced by the gentle quiet of your own peaceful night. There are no duties waiting for you now, no chores to be done at sunrise, no trials to endure. There is only the soft darkness, the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, and the deep, restorative promise of sleep. Let the story end, and allow the quiet to cradle you, carrying you now toward your own sweet dreams.